This is a video of my voice before everything happened. I dug up some things and let's go down this journey together, okay?
Hey y'all, I was thinking if I reach 3K fans here, well, I'm almost at 3K fans.
Here we have a gal named Erin, a really interesting individual that's been posting a lot of content lately, and it strolled up into my algorithm. I think actually one of you guys sent it to me, and she has a lot of different stuff to share on her journey from being a normal gal that was a bit overweight to trying to pursue bodybuilding, and the process of kind of going through that journey with steroids as someone who had no introduction to the gym life into now then somebody using steroids. And now she's on the back end of that, openly talking about it and what happened to her and why she sounds like she does and all of these things. And I think it's really cool. The transformation is extremely interesting to dive into. The video that led me to making this video was this one.
Hi, I'm not a man.
You know it's going to be a good video when the first statement is that.
I'm not transgender. So yeah, now that you know those things, let's talk about my voice. So a lot of people, especially a lot of people who meet me in person, they do seem very not shocked, but they do seem kind of like on the edges of being near me, or like the energy just seems like to avoid me at all cost or not to hear me when I'm talking. So I used to be a bodybuilder, didn't have natural muscle mass because women cannot go over growing 3 pounds of muscle mass a year naturally for free. It's fucking science. Women can't naturally do that. So I had to get on some steroids because I wanted to do bodybuilding. I wanted I did bikini, I did figure, I did wellness. In order to do that, in order to do wellness, to have them monster ass legs, you've got to put on some muscle mass. And what I had to do, we had to jump on some steroids. So that messed up my voice. It made it deeper. So if you meet me in person, or if you talk to me in person, don't try to steer clear of me or not and avoid me at all cost. I'm friendly.
So yeah, she tells us about what we've heard before. She got on steroids to compete, and they were sort of a necessary evil for her. She talks about how those made her voice deeper, and talks about how competing got her to the point where she was willing to use those things. Now, what's interesting about Erin is she talks about this genuinely and doesn't care about the hate that people are giving her or anything that they're saying in the comments section. And she seems to be like a really good person about this, right? Being clairvoyant and allowing people to express their opinions without taking them too personally. I think what we often see in a lot of the influencers we cover online is they'll do everything possible to conceal the things that have happened to them. And as soon as you bring them up, it seems almost offensive and that they have to stand at a point of contention for the things that you've said, even though they're objective truths. She has fun with what she's doing, like shit like this.
Autobots, roll out.
When have we ever seen a girl that's taken this Azul talking about how it affected her, but also sharing it in ways that's funny? You know what I mean? Like, that's pretty rare on this channel. We can go through entire profiles of a fitness influencer and never hear her voice once. I mean, she'll do everything in her power to remove any stories with her voice, to conceal highlights, to just post pictures or videos with audio over it and no voice interactions at all with people. I mean, people really go to the furthest extent to conceal the changes that they've had. Ultimately, she's using it as a learning tool. She's talking about it openly, and she talks about how it kind of hurt her mental health, which we'll get into, and talks about how she stopped taking these things. This is really important for other people to hear. This stuff is what you don't hear from any influencer taking these compounds or bodybuilder. Anyways, I want to show you this untraditional story that we have unfolding out in front of us. She made a mini series basically detailing everything that she's going through in terms of her steroid usage or past steroids usage and how that affected her now and then as well, and kind of where her mind was at with all of these things.
Can you post your competition pictures or videos? So some people wanted pictures of me as a kid. Some people wanted pictures of the journey. So y'all be ready for this. This is going to come in probably your 3 or 4 parts. So this is baby Erin. This is me. This is how I looked growing up. Of course, I got the same getting picked on as a kid and even by my family. But yeah, I was always a bigger person, a bigger girl.
So you can see that she got like the treatment that we all, or not all of us, some of you are probably rich kids that had fucking Ferraris going to school or something. But like, I think a good majority of people in their life had some early, not so great childhood memories of like bullying and other comments being made and other stuff like that being picked on. And I think that is the genesis to a lot of a person's fitness journey, and oftentimes the genesis into taking substances to go to that next level. It certainly was for me.
I would get into like CrossFit and like training with friends and stuff like that, and I never stuck with it. And this is me naturally. I was about 200 pounds right here. As you can see, I completely just didn't like myself. Like, I could even see it on my face, you know? So I decided to get a coach and start going a little bit more serious. This is whenever I was in a prep for bikini, all natural. So all natural and being trained by the right coach, you can go far. So this is me pushing myself naturally, no steroids. This is how I look. And honey, baby, I was fucking good. And I still am, you know, but I was good. Naturally, right here, natural, no steroids. I was serious. I was addicted. People would message me and ask me, how in the are you doing this? And I was just serious.
So for a natural physique, it's not bad. I mean, she has a really good physique considering from the starting point to now. That's a good physique. And what's really interesting to hear too is her expression of that being a really good physique for her. And I think a lot of people would say that this isn't a good physique. And it's cool to see her, somebody that's, you know, taking steroids and various other compounds, admit that her natural physique looked really good, and being excited about that, which should be embraced. And even if it's not the most elite, radicalized, insane physique you've ever seen that's viral worthy, it's still a good physique, especially from the baseline that she was at prior to this.
This is part 2 of my journey. I forgot to put this photo, but this is how I would look in clothes regularly growing up as an adult as well. So now fast forward to the bikini prep that I was telling y'all about. Let's see how I did. Like I was saying, I was focused. I would just wake up in the morning and I was a whole new person. And then on the wall up there, that's my certificate for doing CrossFit for a while for outstanding performance.
So the synopsis of part 2 is that she had a natural physique. It was pretty good. She went through a cut. She didn't get extremely lean. We'll just call it like it is. She didn't get competitor level lean, which likely is where she started to feel like the physique that she had garnered from that work that she had done was not enough, which leads into part 3.
You look normal. What are you talking about? Hold on, my guy. We're not there yet. There's 8 parts. Give it a minute. Wha-bam! I hope I shocked y'all. Here is part 3 of my journey. This is whenever I took a break. I took a little break, right? And then I gained some weight, and then I knew somebody, a coach who had some steroids. So I hit him up, and this is me on my first round of pro hormones right here. You could tell like my abs even look different, and they look tighter, and I look a lot more dry. If you're a bodybuilder, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's my first round of pro hormones right here.
So right off the jump, we have some really concerning things here. She's talking about pro hormones. One of the worst things you could probably take as a female. What is a pro hormone? Well, these were things that were relatively legal. I mean, they were being sold in GNC 3 decades or so ago and actively used by a lot of people in the gym. They were sold as something that had 0 side effects. They are a pro hormone, so the precursor to said hormone. And essentially, when you take something like a pro hormone, it is essentially the compound that gets converted into the main hormone. May it be testosterone, may it be DHT, dihydrotestosterone, or even potentially nandrolone in this case. Now, because it's dependent on your hepatic system or your liver to convert into said endpoint, it has actively put people into liver failure. This was one of the reasons it was banned and made illegal, is because people would get hepatic steatosis and have liver failure from taking what was sold as a supplement that was fine for you to take. And so when you throw in this pro hormone that is going to upregulate a subsequent hormone in your body, usually testosterone was the target of these pro-hormones, it's not good, especially because testosterone isn't very targeted. We have much more refined drugs that were, and some of them still actively used in human beings and specifically tested in females, such as Anavar, that are a little bit less dirty in their total effect because they're not hitting so many different receptor sites. And so for a female, when you upregulate testosterone, and even if it's too far, the virilization effects, that process happens much faster than, let's say, if you took Anavar at a low to moderate dose. Now, virilization, for those of you who are new here, it is the development of secondary male characteristics within a female, deepening of the voice, hair growth in weird areas, clitoral enlargement, and much more stuff, balding even. And the reason that they're not used even by choice in any athlete's regimen most of the time, there's some Olympic athletes using these because they're very hard to detect. Most athletes is because of this in and of itself. It's so damaging to your body. And what's worse about them is these pro-hormones, similar to SARMs, selective androgen receptor modulators, are just failed drugs that never reached human clinical studies because they weren't working. They were causing damage more than any good.
I don't know what it was, y'all, but everything was so different. Everything was different. I looked different, even in my face. Like, I was like, dang, girl, you know? Just quite solid, more defined, more muscle. I started to notice my legs. My legs were like one of the first things that I've noticed. I was like, oh my God, I got quads now. Like, cause I've always envied people with quads. I always loved being a woman in general with big old legs. I was with a coach and we started really getting into it. I was doing like hours of cardio. I was eating hardly anything. I would have a lot of protein, but I mean, this coach, I noticed that I ate a lot less in calories. I don't even know how I did it, but I was young and I was in my 20s.
She goes on to talk about how everything was different. And yeah, no shit. I mean, when you have an abundance of a hormone that is not supposed to be there, endocrine function shifts entirely, and as a result, your body shifts entirely. A lot of women talk about their face being more chiseled and more like ideal in a lot of ways. There's like this fine reverse U curve where you take some androgens and you get lean and like the fat kind of peels off of your face and you get that nice like skin that I think everyone wants, that nice jawline and face shape, which is like tapered in, that a lot of females desire. But that really quickly goes away and is met by a lot of other permanent side effects to your face that you don't want to. Stuff we've talked about so many times, the development of an enlarged mandible, the forebrow of a female's face growing. These are things that are studied in data actively, that is indisputable, and I don't know why people still try to dispute this, but it happens when women use androgens. And so there's like this fine U curve, the reverse U curve, where as soon as that peak dose is hit, where you find, you know, a tolerance limit and your face is changed maybe for a more positive route, the natural thought is let's just keep going. It's going to get even better. And it comes down. And now your face is permanently changed for the rest of your life. This is just the face, but the body too. Everything will be different. Unfortunately, this is what keeps people seeking for more.
What really helped me was being around people who supported me, and everybody that I knew did bodybuilding, and that's always what I did in my free time. I believe I had like 3 jobs at this time.
Okay, this is really important. She talks about being around people that supported her, being around other bodybuilders, and everyone that she knew was a bodybuilder at this time. This is what gets people into drugs and gets them to stay using drugs, is being in a circle of people where it's completely normalized and these side effects are too. It's just a part of the norm. We talk about this in so many videos, the social bias of bodybuilding, because when you're inside of that gym and you're inside of the community, it seems very normal, but people from the outside looking in are like, dude, what the hell is going on in there? And if you can take 5 seconds to step outside of that community and do some other stuff, it's really quickly an easy thing to do, to look back and be like, whoa, like I almost got too close to the fire there for a second. But you won't see that when you're in the community. And it's likely a part of what kept her going down this path.
So what did you take again? Question is what didn't I take? So I know I took testosterone, but I took it in forms of called with different names. It depended on what prep I was in. It depended on what coach that I had. It depended on if I felt good that day to even take anything. When to cycle on, when to cycle off. I have taken, here's my list, get ready. pro hormones, clenbuterol. I've taken Anavar in drips and pills, so like a little drip bottle. D-ball, which I was so stupid to take it. I was so I did not like my, I don't know what I can say here on Instagram, but there's no reason for me to take D-ball. D-ball's for men. T9, Rad 140. I love me some Rad. Love me some Rad 140, especially if you're a woman. It's very gentle, and it makes you look very feminine. I got some still, and it's in that cabinet. I could take it, but I don't.
Okay, now we're at part 4, and it is diabolical. We went from using pro hormones to now using testosterone, dianabol, which a woman should never explicitly use for performance enhancing, and even men should it's a historic drug. It's one of the first anabolic steroids ever made. It is not selective. It is very dirty. It creates methyl estradiol, which is very hard to manage in terms of like hormonal dysfunction and men developing gynecomastia and things of this nature. Very terrible drug for a woman to use. It is a synthetic derivative of testosterone. Terrible idea. On top of that, combining in Rad 140, which she says is a great drug for females and expresses femininity. No. The reason it wasn't improved is because of its potential to cause hepatic failure, was for its potential to virilize women, which when introduced, it was such a problem, it was not approved for human use for this specific reason. Now, Rad 140 is a SARM, a selective androgen receptor modulator, which would imply it's selective to specific receptor sites, i.e. muscle, bone mineral, etc. You get all of the benefits and none of the downside. This was its advertised effect. This was why it was studied. This was why it was developed, so that people with sarcopenia, women, children who had burns or other injuries looking to repair themselves quicker, or people who had long medical stays in beds where they were maybe in a coma or something of that nature, to help them conserve lean mass and bone mass, they would take these compounds without side effects. That was the goal. That was the intended goal. The outcome was nothing close to that. And the reason that there's literally none of them actively used in our medical system is because none of them were selective. And in many cases, they were worse than some of these steroids that we have on hand still. Anavar being a great example. It's insane to me that coaches are recommending this stuff to females or recommending it at all. And some of these compounds I would personally never use in a context of me trying to enhance my physique, just because there's so many better options, and it doesn't even take that great of an education to understand the plethora of better options that are on the table for something like enhancing your physique. And it's no surprise to me that in this like second part of part 4, she mentions having like mental health problems, and there's a really bad quote unquote corruption there, is because a lot of these compounds are just deteriorating endocrine function entirely for a female. Talking about progesterone, that's going to come down. Talking about estradiol, that's going to come down. Menstrual cycle is going to get dysregulated. And you put yourself into a perimenopause state as a female who's young and should not be there, you're going to experience a lot of psychogenic effects from these compounds. Talk about methyl estradiol from D-bol. That is going to massively influence the cognitive states a person is in. No duh. In part 5, she talks about having these grinding moments that she feels the steroids are having an effect on her body, and so she took a break.
So after that, I did take a break. What I call it, for being on steroids, I call it the steroid grinding. The grinding from the steroids. You can actually feel your mind and your body have this grinding tension like all the time. So I knew I needed to get off and cycle my pro hormones that I was on. So I did end up gaining weight, and I was just off it for a little bit. I was big, but I decided that I looked on YouTube, and that's whenever I learned that you're supposed to cycle off shit a lot, and I was told to stay on it all the time. So COVID hit, and 21, and I didn't have anywhere to work out, and I was so dedicated, and I got back on the pro hormones. So I decided to work out in my garage. So here's some videos of me. Funny thing about bodybuilding is that you always feel like you're fat. So
But then she talks about weight gain post cycle, which I think a lot of people talk about. Look, a lot of people identify themselves as the person that uses steroids that is elite in the gym. When you take steroids out, that feeling of being elite, whether it's subconscious or conscious, kind of dissipates. And so people tend to stop adhering to the training plan, stop adhering to the diet plan. They start to go out a little bit more. They stop training as frequently, and things start to happen because why would I? I'm not making the progress I was when I was on the juice. There's no point. And this really bad delusion is what causes a lot of people to fall out of shape, to lose muscle, to put on fat relatively quickly, especially when stopping various different steroidal compounds. But of course, it didn't take her long to start pro hormones, as we hear here again. And I just like, man, if we had Anavar in, if that was being used at some point, at least that one we can pretty clearly say it's not going to cause drastic changes in hepatic health and injure somebody permanently. Anavar is well tolerated even in children, albeit at extremely low doses, where most bodybuilder women are going to be using far too much Anavar, but at low to moderate doses for years, right? Why are we taking pro hormones, an archaic drug that was illegalized because it damaged people and ruined their lives? I mean, it's just a crazy concept to me. Part 6, she's still on pro hormones, baby. Let's go.
Part 6 of my journey. I know, you're probably over it. I think I kind of am too, but I have so much content. Why not share it to the world that's actually interested in my life? I was obsessed, still working out in my garage on pro hormones. I dipped into clenbuterol, dipped into a lot of things. I put in some work. This was all during COVID. These photos I'm showing you are all during COVID. I figured out that all I needed was TikTok and a camera and a phone, and I created friendships online, and people around my town envied me and would fangirl about me and stuff like that, and I didn't know about it until they reach out to me later. It's pretty cool.
She talks about something that I also think is really important, talking about that social bias again, which is that essentially her life basically revolved around gym relationships. People started to idolize her, talk about her, ask her how she's doing these things, reaching out and starting to communicate, making friendships. And she even says at one point she was like the talk of the town. She was the number one. And these kind of things are really, and I mean really dangerous, because they lock a person into this behavioral trait of using steroids. Well, people recognize me when I take X and Y and Z, and so if I stop taking X, Y, and Z, I'm not going to be recognized anymore. That sucks. I'm going to keep taking X, Y, and Z. You do this on a scale that's even greater, where you have an influencer who has multi-millions of followers potentially. Imagine the pressure to stay on versus to come off, and the damage that can do to a person's psyche, unfortunately their body, when they're not willing to take a break from things. And as we go into part 7, it's kind of just more of a rambling, but generally speaking, it seems that she has no stage photos or no exceptionally lean photos or like anything where she actually got into condition where she needed to be. Not being rude here, just being objective. Bodybuilding is an extremely hard sport, and it is a sport. It's a professional sport. If you're going to be stepping on stage, there's a certain standard that you have to kind of hit. We haven't seen that in any of the pictures that she's shown, and she's changed to different categories a bunch of different times, yet we haven't seen that come to fruition in anything that she's done. It's interesting that we're getting a lot of photos, but we're not getting anything that's tangible to the whole competing side of things and getting really good results. And that leads us to this point in part 8, where she's again talking about taking Rad 140 and Anavar together. Wild, do not do this. Like, just a terrible idea. That's accumulation of androgens that will 100% without question cause a great degree of virilization.
Part 8, I promise, this is it. But I just wanted to give some little finishing touches with my other videos. So for the wellness prep, I did take Anavar, I did take Clen, Rad, T9. Forgot what else I took. It's a lot. I kept the bottles though, you know, from when I did. So yeah, the wellness was my most favorite prep to go through. And if I were to compete again, it would be this body type.
She was off for about 3 years now in total. So that's really great to hear. I'm actually happy to see it. It seems like she was never able to consistently stay on the path long enough to warrant the use of these compounds. First of all, I think a person should really strive to get as lean as possible if that's the path they're going down before deciding I'm going to start blasting a bunch of different experimental, superhuman compounds and supplements. It's good to hear that she was able to come off and disassociate with that lifestyle a little bit, because I think in some cases it can be really healthy.
So now I go to the gym and I just maintain what we have. I forgot to mention like all the details of the preps that I've been through. One of those preps, the figure one where I was in COVID time, I did that myself. So I just took from what I learned the previous coaches in. And if you notice, you didn't see any stage photos. That's because I did not actually ever compete. I just would hire somebody to coach me, and I would go through the prep until about peak week, and then we would not end up doing the show. Because my body and my mind were so corrupt during those periods of time, and I needed to stop the prep.
And in part 8, she finally does mention the fact that there is no stage photos is because the mental corruption, the thing that she kept alluding to, this mental corruption of the compounds that she was using causing some kind of effects with her body where she just couldn't keep it together and pulled out of the show last minute. And this makes a lot of sense, and you see this in a lot of people. What I tend to believe, at least my own observations, are that people often think you take steroid, you get physical effect. But what is reality is you take steroid, you get psychogenic effect. I mean, steroids will knowingly alter brain chemistry strongly. Dopamine pathways get altered, serotonin pathways get altered, and specifically norepinephrine and epinephrine get altered drastically. Androgen receptor activation happens in the brain too, which is a crazy thing to talk about. And there's morphological changes to your brain architecture. Like crazy stuff is going on inside of your head, and you are actively changing your brain chemistry by using these compounds. This can lead to people being irrational, acting out in violence, doing things that are a little bit more reactive and brash, unlike the maybe slower and more calculated version of them. The average effect of taking steroids is there's not such a great notable amplitude of mental effects, but it can still happen. And with a lot of people, they do experience these effects. You will see bodybuilders tend to very antisocial behaviors quite frequently. You'll see them being a lot more quiet and unable to keep eye contact as frequently. You'll notice a lot of small changes within a person's behavior once they start taking larger doses of steroids. This is something that I noticed in myself. When I started steroids, I became very different socially. I was always awkward, but I became really awkward, and to this day still am very awkward from having used steroids. And I think a lot of you can attest to this in the comments, as I've read the few of them sharing similar things.
I listened to my body. Like I said, that wellness one, when I couldn't walk anymore, that's when I realized I've got to stop things. But I get it all the time. Will I compete again? Do I have what it takes? What's underneath all this fat?
Anyways, I think this is really interesting. It's a tough series to go through because you can see a string of errors that led to really not a whole lot of payoff. And it would be one thing if this person did a lot of damage and was able to come out on top with that, maybe with some sponsorships, some money, some accolades, some social media clout. But we don't see that happening here, and we don't even see a physique that was really wow. And unfortunately, there is another bias that we tend to bleed into with fitness, and that's the success bias. Tend to see people who are really successful on social media, who have great physiques, who got all of the things. They won the shows, they got the sponsorships, they have the nice cars, the nice homes, they post a lot of content, they have freeing lives, and it looks really good. It looks awesome. Toji's a great example of this, right? Somebody who came from nothing, took steroids, and now he's, up there with the best. You see the best results, but what you don't see are the unspoken thousands and thousands and thousands of people, the grand majority of people taking compounds who are competing at regional shows, who are just sitting at home doing nothing and have moderate physiques, something that you could confidently say, that could be natural, and yet they're blasting pro hormones like this, like hepatically damaging compounds just to look okay. I'm not saying that her physique was never impressive. I think it's amazing that she had a wonderful transformation, and I just want to applaud a person for going through that. And it seems like the first half of her transformation was natural. But what we are very clearly seeing here is what probably happens to most people who go down this path. They get results, they have all of the side effects, and they come out the other end with not much to say. And now they have to live with that, making videos online, trying to tell people that they're not a trans. And that's a really rough life to live, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, that's really it for this video. Thanks for watching. My editor keeps telling me that I'm supposed to tell you guys to subscribe because apparently we have like 64% of everybody watching who is not subscribed. So if all of you could subscribe, we'd get to our 50K goal tomorrow. Like literally, if everyone who watches the videos just clicked the subscribe button, we would be there tomorrow. It's crazy. So I'm supposed to remind you. Thanks, editor, for reminding me. Deuces.